Are you a Christian songwriter wishing you could be heard by the right people in Nashville? Yeah, we get it. You've been writing for years, but you have no idea how to be heard, how to get your songs out there, or how to connect your talent with opportunities. You feel stuck and wonder if you'll ever get a real break. NCS Bootcamp is your chance to be heard by taking your songwriting to a level you've only dreamed of. It gives you hands-on, personalized coaching and mentoring to help you think and write like a professional Christian songwriter determined to impact the world with your songs. If you're ready to empower your songwriting dreams, go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com/bootcamp to book your free songwriting breakthrough strategy call today. Become the songwriter you were born to be with NCS Bootcamp.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Hey everybody, John Chisholm here for the Song Revolution podcast, sponsored by, as you heard in the intro, Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower you, Christian songwriters all over the world. And we have several ways that we do that. And if you're not really familiar with what we're doing, let me take just about 60 or 90 seconds here to acquaint you with what it is that we're really trying to do here at NCS, Nashville Christian Songwriters. If you don't know who I am, I'm not going to take a long time to tell you, but I have about 35 years in the songwriting, Christian songwriting, publishing, arranging, and also being a worship leader. I've recorded two albums with Integrity Music, one in '94 called Firm Foundation, which has had a worldwide impact, as well as another 2001 album with them called Come Expecting Jesus. I've also had over 400 songs recorded and have been part of hundreds of albums as a publisher, managing fantastic songwriters for Integrity, and prior to that at Star Song Media. So I have a really extensive background in this, and this really is just the continuation, and in a lot of ways, this is the convergence of my lifetime practically in Christian songwriting, encouraging songwriters and creating product, and just helping the Word of God get out to the world in gospel music. And so many people that are watching this Facebook Live on 3 different pages right now have been part of that as well. So God bless you. Thank you so much. I'm doing something a little bit different for this podcast. I actually have 3 different devices going where I'm broadcasting the recording of this podcast on Facebook Live while I'm actually doing it. So Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. We have a Facebook page, just Nashville Christian Songwriters. We have a Facebook group called Successful Christian Songwriters. We have over 5,020 members, and it's free to join. You just have to ask to join. It doesn't exist for likes and shares and promoting what you're doing. It really is a peer critique group where you can really grow as a songwriter. And we've had a lot of people really that have felt a tremendous amount of benefit from being part of Successful Christian Songwriters. So if you're watching on any of the other channels here and you haven't joined and you'd like that, go ahead and check that out. We also have NCS Membership, which is a fee-based membership group where we're putting out content constantly with a growing cache, if you will, cachet of amazing videos and articles and all kinds of helps. We do master classes, and it's really a growing library of resources that if you're an aspiring songwriter, this is a very valuable resource. And you can read all about all of this over at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. And then we have what we call NCS Weekend Intensives. We're about to have our 3rd one. The first one we had in November of 2017 with about 13 songwriters. In March of 2018, we had 26 songwriters, and we're capping at about 30 songwriters, June 21, 2, and 3. free right here in the Nashville area. We have internationally renowned live music producer Tom Jackson, who's worked with just about every Christian group that I can possibly think to name. Phillips, Craig and Dean, Lecrae, and on. Name somebody, and he's worked with them, as well as people like Taylor Swift. That's right. He actually has done 3 tours coaching T Swift herself. So Tom is going to be with us. We have Mike Harland from Lifeway Worship, and these people, they're the largest denominational publishing house that I know of right here in Nashville. And Mike Harland, who is my cousin by marriage, he's actually going to be with us. He's the director of Lifeway Worship, and he's going to be with us through that weekend. Chrissy Nordoff, who is a fabulous integrity music songwriter, probably best known for the song Your Great Name that was written with Michael Neal, who was an integrity writer and artist that I was familiar with back in the day. And she is an incredible songwriter, writes over 300 songs a year. She's had songs recorded by Mandisa, by Natalie Grant, by Darlene Check. She's going to be with us. And then there's somebody else that I'm leaving out, and they're going to be very angry with me. Who else is it? We've got Tom, we've got Mike, we've got Chrissy. I'm going to be teaching, and I'm leaving out John Mays with Centricity. We're going to be having our opening dinner on Thursday night, June 21, over at Centricity Music. So if you are interested, we would love to have you join. And you can read all about that at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Just go to the resources or the store, whatever it's called there, and you can come and hang out with us. You know, I think it's so funny because the number one reason that people say that they can't be successful in Nashville is that they don't know the right people. And you know, that excuse is gone, folks, because you're talking to the right people. If you want to get songs heard, we can work with you. We can coach you. We know all these people, and they're a lot more accessible than you think, right? So that excuse is absolutely gone. What you've got to do is grow yourself up, write phenomenal songs that the whole world wants to sing. That's your job, and we're here to help you. And from there, we have our premium 8-week boot camp that you got to talk to me to get into. So if you're interested in hearing about how we help songwriters go from average to amazing, then just private message me here at any one of these groups, and we'll be happy to help you hear all about that. So that's going to be fun. So that's what we do here at NCS, Nashville Christian Songwriters. We connect people. We help people really hone the craft of their songwriting, because everybody's called, right? Everybody listening to me is called to write songs, probably. And yet, not everyone is going to win at that, because you're just not taking the time to understand what that means, what that really means to add craft to what it is you're doing. So that's why we exist, to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. Well, let's go ahead and get into our content for this podcast. And as I was saying earlier, pre-broadcast, back in September, I had the opportunity to write for GTR Magazine, which is not a Christian magazine necessarily, but some wonderful Christian folks own it and publish this. And you can find this and all of their great issues at GEAR, Gear, TECH, Tech, REC for rec.com. So geartechrec.com. And I am right across the page from Megan Trainor, all about that bass, no treble, which is a fantastic example of alliteration, by the way, with all the A's, B's, and T's. That's actually a pretty fun little song that makes you want to shake what your mama give you. So I'm in this magazine, and it's an article called 5 Tips for Writing Hit Hooks. And in the first, and so I've been breaking this out and talking about it in the podcast. So this is the 3rd installment. In the first installment, I talked about the equation that I use for helping my clients learn how to write great songs. And that equation is that a great idea can turn into a great hook, which should turn into a great lyric with a great melody equals a great song. And the entire lesson in that is that without a great idea, you'll never have a great song. The level of your song will never exceed the level of your idea, right? So you've got to have a phenomenal idea if you expect to develop it into a phenomenal song. And so that's lesson one right there. Number two is memorability. And memorability is not as elusive as you think. I mean, you know it intuitively, right? Even if it's a song that you've written, if it just won't leave you alone and other people are coming up, what was that song? And they hum a little bit of it for you and you're like, oh yeah, well that's this song. And you kind of sing it for them and they're like, oh yeah, it's just that won't leave me alone. It's been an earworm, which sometimes that can be pretty horrible if the earworm you have is Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care. That's not like a fun one to have, right? Or name your favorite Celine Dion song that gets stuck in your ear, or whoever it is that you don't care all that much for, and yet all you hear is that song in your heart. So in that lesson, I talked about learning how to ask better questions, because a lot of songwriting, really a lot of life, is about asking better questions, right? No matter what it is, if it's our relationships, if it's our finances, if it is our spiritual life, whatever it is, it really comes down to asking better questions. We've got to ask ourselves better questions. Why aren't my relationships working? Why aren't my finances working? Why isn't my career working? Why isn't my mind working today, right? We have to ask ourselves those questions so that we can begin to work toward better answers. I mean, the immediate fixes are pretty rare, people. And, the songwriters who show up on my doorstep and tell me that God gave them the song, and I'm very, very tempted to tell them that's because he didn't want it. It's like, no, okay, be nice, John. Don't say things like that to people because they're so well-meaning, right? But you know what? God can write great songs. So if you're going to say God wrote your song, if you're going to say God gave you the song, at least have the courage to admit that you need to learn how to write the song that God is trying to give you. So memorability. So we have the equation for writing great songs, the memorability factor. And then today, I want to talk about emotion because it's just extremely important that we look at the feeling that a song is bringing into our atmosphere. And it really doesn't take a whole lot to figure that out, does it? I mean, turn on the radio, dial through the stations, and as soon as you hear music, well, as soon as you hear anything, but let's just confine it to music for right now. As soon as you hear whatever it is, if it's heavy metal, you're suddenly banging your head. I'm not going to do that too fast because that'll make my head hurt. Like I think of Wayne's World when they were doing the Queen song, right? Bohemian Rhapsody, and they're like banging their head, right? It's like, the atmosphere changes. Or if you turn on easy listening and suddenly you kind of get all chill and you kind of lean back in your chair, or you turn on smooth jazz, and suddenly there's that annoying screeching Kenny G, soprano sax that you'll jump up immediately and turn that off. No offense if you like Kenny G, but it's like every song. Or you turn on Christian music, and if it's K-Love or one of the big stations like that, the sound, exactly what it's going to feel like in your house when you turn that on. That's the atmosphere that music is, because music reaches beyond the thinking and the mind and goes straight into the heart, straight into the soul level. That's why when you hear a song that comes on and it's got a beat, he's like, yeah, yeah, you just want to move, right? Or you hear this tribal drum thing going on, and it's like, suddenly you just want to shake what your mama give you because you can hear that. I think of Gloria Estefan, right? Come on, everybody. Any longer. Songs like you almost know all the words to, right? And so you kind of think about that, but there's an emotion. There's something that even the music itself begins to inspire and create in your very atmosphere. And that's why music is so important. That's why we need to listen to what we're listening to and not just have, things on. It drives me crazy. Now, you might do this, and I apologize to you if you're one of the people that does this all the time, but it drives me crazy when I go into somebody's house, an atmosphere that I can't control, and they've got the TV on constantly. There's no volume control. The commercials are just as loud as the whatever show is on, and they seem just oblivious. It's like white noise to them, but it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me. It's like I cannot stand that. In our house, we have the remote, and anytime a commercial comes on, bam, we hit the mute button. It's just like a discipline around here, unless we're on drugs or something, which we're not. But you know what I mean? It's like I cannot stand that because it makes me feel a certain way when those people on television start yelling at me about their used cars or about whatever it is that they're trying to get me to buy. Drives me absolutely crazy. So it's important that we recognize the feeling, the actual emotion that we are evoking with the songs that we write. It's really critical that we understand this, people, and that we capture the right kind of chords, that we capture the right kind of melodies, that we do everything we can to convey, we call it the spirit of a song, but it's really the emotion, the feeling of a song as we are writing it. And a lot of times writers don't really pay attention to that. They don't really think about what's the emotion that I'm trying to bring with these lyrics, with this music. What kind of atmosphere am I creating for people as I present the song? So we're back to feelings, and feelings really are important. And, in another part of this article, I was talking about not being led by your feelings when it comes to writing songs. But here at this point, I think it's really important that we do pay attention to what we're delivering in the emotion of our songs. And there's a whole branch of psychology that's dedicated to exploring the reasons that we respond the way that we do emotionally to music, with or without lyrics. But I think we can just suffice it to say that the most effective songs evoke an emotion that is usually, it really needs to be inherent in that hook. Let's think about a couple of songs that you probably know already, like When You're Down and Trouble and You Need Some Love and Care. You guys sing along. And nothing, everybody sway, and nothing is going right. Come on. What's next? Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there, right? To brighten up even your darkest night. What a great song, right? What does it evoke in us, right? It evokes something in us. You guys sing along with me. You just call out my name. They're probably going to sue me, right? Because I didn't get copyright clearance. And wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh, yes, I will, to see you again, right? Beautiful song. You've Got a Friend, written by Carole King. And just, what an amazing song it is, but it evokes something in us, a sense of friendship, a sense of warmth. It's like we want to just, put our arms around whoever's next to us and sway a little bit and turn around and look them warmly in the eyes and say, winter, spring, summer, or fall. Here we go. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there. Yes, I will. I like this part. Hey, ain't it good to know that you've got a friend? When people can be so cold, they'll hurt you and desert you. They take your soul if you let them. Oh, yeah, but don't you let them. I got to stop singing and get back to talking. All right, so that's a great example. What about I can't make you love me if you don't. You can make your heart feel something it won't. Right? I mean, it's a classic. I mean, it is a hands down classic by Reed and Shamblin, made famous by Bonnie Raitt. Right? And so what an emotion. We've got a one-sided love affair going on here, and this girl's feeling jilted. She's feeling cheap, because of this whole relationship thing, and she's kind of realizing that she can't make this guy love her, and so it's sad. So how many of us have experienced kind of that one-sided, a lopsided love, for somebody else, and it's not being returned. And so there's just this universality there. We've all kind of felt rejected at one time or another. And so that evokes a certain feeling and emotion. How about this one? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right? What does that evoke in you? Of course, it's the most recorded Christian song of all time, but what does that evoke in you? It evokes a sense of gratitude, right? It immediately evokes that sense of thankfulness to God for what it is that he has done for us through the cross, through Jesus Christ. What about this one? Hello. I can't think of the rest of it. I can't think of the rest of it, but it's like, the big Adele song. You guys, you're probably singing it in your head right now, but, it's like, what does that evoke? When you listen to that song, it's like it evokes that sense of regret and loneliness. Like here she is in England and there he is in LA or wherever that whole thing was happening. And you've got this heartbreak. You got this heartbreak and this distance thing that you immediately feel. Okay. So let me ask you about the songs that you're writing. What do people feel? Do they feel sorry for you because they're like, that's just not a very good song? Or do they feel like, oh, he's so sincere, Or do they feel like, okay, I kind of like that, but I don't know why I don't like the rest of it, right? And so if they think anything other than, oh my gosh, I've got to sing that song, or I've got to tap my foot, or I've got to figure out what that song is so I can get it on a record and play it in my truck. It's like if they're feeling anything other than that, then you're losing them. You've already lost them, right? If they're thinking to themselves, I don't know what this song is about. Well, then you've lost them. You've got. That's the reason we write hooks. That's the reason that we do what we do here at NCS, to teach you how to write great hooks based on great ideas, right? That's why we do this. That's why we have the podcast and the NCS Intensive coming up in June, and the boot camp and the membership and these free podcasts. It's like we're giving out so that you can take these steps and grow, that you can meet with us at any level that you can and begin to grow the way that you snag people. People really want something that's going to brighten their day. People want something that's going to lift them up. I was just at a songwriting retreat this past week with about 40 songwriters, and I was with one particular group, and it's very cool how this thing works, because your names are literally drawn out of a hat, and you literally might not even have ever met the person you're going to write with. And so, just suddenly you're in a room with two other people that you may not have even met, and you're going to walk out of there in an hour and a half to 2 hours with a finished song. And it's just powerful, right? And so in the first co-write, I was with Val Dacus, and who I know, and I've written with Val before, and Helga Kafer. And I hope they don't get mad at me, but I'm going to sing you the chorus we came up with, because a lot of Southern gospel writers were there, and that's not been the main thing I've done. I've been more of a praise and worship songwriter, but we wrote a lot of Southern gospel, and I was just praying as the session was beginning, and I was like, Lord, one more time we come to you and lay down the burdens of our hearts, and one more time, Lord, we just do this, and one more time we do that. And when I said amen, Helga said, that's the hook we're going to write, because we all had ideas, but that's the hook. that we were going to write. And so we wound up, and what we said was, and this is going to be a good example of what a song can evoke, an emotion that a song can evoke, right? And so we thought people really need something to lift them up. Everybody's down, everybody's got trials, and we don't want to write about trials and suffering and all that kind of stuff again, right? And so we came up with, one more time, I'm gonna bring my burdens. One more time, I'm gonna lay it all down. One more time, I'm gonna hold on to the promise. Your great faithfulness can still be found. Every morning when I wake up in your mercy, every evening when I close my eyes, it's your goodness that I'm gonna believe in one more time. So what does that evoke in you, right? Copyright 2018 by John Chisholm, Helga Kafer, and Val Dacus. But what does that evoke in you, right? What does that immediately evoke in you? It's like trust, right? It's your goodness that I'm gonna believe in one more time. And it just came out of that prayer that I prayed, and we wrote it in about an hour and a half, right? Because we just were able to do that. But that evokes something. So I forget what my original point was, but that was it. So what about I will always love you. I will always love you. Right? Dolly Parton. I mean, it's such a simple song. I think it's got one verse. She made millions off of it. And then tell me your name. Oh my gosh. Whitney Houston. I had a glitch in my head there for just a second. When Whitney did it, another $18 billion, happened because of that. And it's the simplest little hook, but it's so endearing, right? And so the emotion, that's what we're talking about. Our podcast today is about emotion. And those of you watching here on 3 different Facebook pages, I just needed an audience so I could record this podcast, because I get in my office and I start staring at things, and I'm an extrovert. I can't help it. Even if you're on the other side of the camera here, at least I know you're there, and a lot of people are joining in and making comments. So thank you so much for doing that. And you don't even have to go listen to the podcast now, because you're getting it live. So each of these titles have a certain emotion or sentiment attached to them. Carole King with You've Got a Friend, she captured a tender sentiment about the comfort of friendship that has affected all of us since the time we heard JT sing it. And Reed and Shamblin captured the melancholy rejection in a one-sided love affair. Newton managed to pen the most famous and often recorded hymn with the exclamation of Amazing Grace. And Adele had us all singing along on the long-awaited phone call from the other side, wondering if there was any way to reconnect. And the other thing I'd point out is that other than Hello, all of the other titles had a lot of alliteration in them, right? So you've got to always be aware of that, right? Alliteration is something you need to go study, because alliteration is one of the keys to anything. It's one of the great keys to marketing. It's one of the great keys to songwriting, to poetry, to prose. It's just one of the most powerful poetic devices that you guys can possibly have in your arsenal of great songwriting. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close as far as our podcast is concerned, and then I'm going to answer some questions on Facebook. I'm going to leave all three pages and groups open and try to answer some questions and just hang out with the peeps who have tuned in today. And I appreciate you guys listening to the Song Revolution podcast. We have some amazing guests coming up in the very near future that I'm extremely excited about. People that you're gonna know and you're gonna love. And we've had so many great episodes. We have like 62 episodes of the Song Revolution podcast. It's all right there for you. And I think that it is one of the most powerful resources that anyone's ever created for songwriters, and it's absolutely free. It's just right here. We're on Stitcher and Spotify and Libsyn.com and YouTube, on our site at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, and on iTunes, of course. So I hope that you'll share this episode out. I hope that you will support us, because we're giving away a whole lot of free content for you. So I hope that you'll take just a moment. If you find the Song Revolution podcast helpful to you, I hope that you'll take just a moment and support NCS just a little bit in return, and share out everything that you can so that we can help build the kingdom one great song at a time. John Chisholm here for the Song Revolution podcast and Nashville Christian Songwriters. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening in today on the Song Revolution podcast. If you're wanting to take your songwriting to the next level, be sure to jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com right now to check out all the valuable resources that we have there for you, especially NCS membership, where you can go deeper into a community of like-minded songwriters and tap into encouraging blogs, videos, powerful masterclasses, and a whole lot more to get you where you really want to go. I'll see you next time.